The new skipper is here. Skip Schumaker has been introduced as the Rangers' new manager. But if the old manager couldn't get this thing to turn things around, what's the plan with this new one?
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a crippling addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about Skip Schumaker's introductory press conference, what the plan is, what he needs to do, what he wants to do, and what this team needs to do to support him, plus some bits of news and notes that happened while I was away. Before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Now, the Rangers introduced Friday their new manager, Skip Schumaker, sitting for about a year as the official manager in waiting. That title ended up being pretty much spot on, because once Bruce Bochy was out the door, it took less than a week for the Rangers to announce Skip Schumaker as their next skipper. And it took them about another week until they officially showed him off to the press, let him talk, let him answer questions, let GM Chris Young answer questions about what's the vision, what's new, what's happening with this guy. Because this is a unique situation. Now, it's not completely unique for a team to hire somebody who was already on the staff to replace a skipper who did a great job, perfect job in year one, and then didn't do as good a job the last 2 years of his tenure in Texas. Now, these two may end up switching roles, because Bruce Bochy has been offered an advisory role in the front office, though he will not be the Rangers' next manager. And that is exactly what Skip Schumaker was doing this past year. I want to start off by talking about what he did here, because his role was very undefined. And with the press conference, he was able to talk more at length about what he actually did. I want to talk about what his vision is, what he wants, and then what this team needs to do for Skip Schumaker's 4 or maybe more, maybe less years here to be a success. So what did he do here? Well, he was a special advisor to the general manager, which is the most nebulous title in any baseball front office. It could range from someone who is hands-on there every day, talking with the general manager, going all around the minor league, going around the major leagues, talking with coaches, talking with players, doing more of a hands-on approach. Or it could be kind of a ceremonial role where you're on the roster if they need to call you up and say, hey, what's your thoughts on this certain thing? What's your thoughts on, how we're managing this bullpen? What's your thoughts on the trade deadline? Things like that. And it's a very nebulous title for a reason, because you can get all kinds of different guys doing this. They have Dayton Moore on the roster right now as one of these special advisors to the GM. It has been a role where Adrian Beltre has filled in years past. It's been a role Michael Young has filled in years past. Pudge Rodriguez, I believe, is still a special assistant to the general manager, which kind of could be more of like, at this point, the royal family. It's more of a figurehead position, come out for special occasions, say things about how the Rangers are a good organization and whatnot. Or it could be something like this. Skip Schumaker was somewhere in between, somewhere in kind of the middle ground of that range. So Skip Schumaker was around at least once a month. He would come and watch a Rangers game, maybe for a weekend, maybe for a series with Chris Young. He would sit in his suite, talk with him, listen to him for his vision of this team, what he wanted for this team, his frustrations with this team, things that he was seeing. He would just sit there and talk and listen with Chris Young in those suites. Then he also spent a lot of time in the minor leagues, specifically in Frisco, with the AA Frisco Rough Riders. He was spending time with Rangers top prospects like Sebastian Walcott. He was spending time with some of their top pitching prospects who were cycling in and out of Frisco throughout the season, spending some time with some of the coaching staff down there, including Carlos Cardoza, who is the Frisco Rough Riders manager, as he was described by Evan Grant, a rising star in this Rangers system. I really like Carlos Cardoza. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Seems to be a great minor league manager. Probably, I think eventually could be working his way up to an eventual major league manager, very respected throughout this system. But he was establishing those relationships. Skip Schumaker was of all the way up and down this coaching staff, getting to know the organization from top to bottom. He kind of described this year off of managing because last year that he managed was 2024, not all that long ago. The first year that he managed was 2023. So this will be basically a new-ish manager, but who had such raging success in 2023, just like the Texas Rangers did in 2023. He described this year off of managing as sort of a reset. He spent time learning from Bruce Bochy, and he said when he introduced himself to Bruce Bochy, the Rangers' current skipper at the time, he said, "Hey, I can't wait to learn from you." Not Skip Schumaker. Bruce Bochy said that about Skip Schumaker. He had a lot of praise for Bruce Bochy and his leadership style. He said, hey, that's the kind of guy Bruce Bochy was, of just bringing you in, making you feel comfortable, and being a guy who is learning still in his late 60s, was still learning from guys like Skip Schumaker, like from Chris Young, like from these players, and from everybody. And that's a quality I think Skip Schumaker shares. And that's something I think that is very, very important for being a great major league manager. I talked about it last week, the week before. At some point when I talked about managers, I've done so many shows, and before I left for vacation this past week, I kind of jumbled them all together. But when I talk about what the Rangers need in a manager, one of the qualities I talked about was being adaptable. Learning the organization has given him such a leg up that he already has relationships with these players, from the guys on the major league team to guys in the minor leagues. I mean, having that relationship with Sebastian Walcott, Skip Schumaker signed a 4-year contract. He will be here through 2029 if he is not let go in the middle of that term, which I don't. Maybe he will be, maybe he won't be. I can't predict what's going to happen in 3 years. But already having that established relationship with Sebastian Walcott, who is going to be up in the major leagues by the end of 2029, I would assume by several years, and already having, barring some kind of catastrophe, but already having that pre-established relationship with a guy who's going to be very important for the future of this Texas Rangers franchise in Sebastian Walcott. Whether he does well, whether he does not do well, that is going to be a big factor for the Rangers moving forward. I mean, they have 3 guys who I think will be their long-term outfield in Evan Carter, in Wyatt Langford, and then in Sebastian Walcott eventually. I don't think he's going to come up tomorrow. Well, because there's no Raiders games happening tomorrow. But I don't know when exactly he's going to be up in the major leagues, but already having that established relationship to make Sebastian Walcott feel just that much more comfortable at the big league level. Though he's got a good head on his shoulders, he'll probably feel comfortable anywhere, but just having that extra level of familiarity, I think it's helpful, of having the year of learning what this organization is like, not being an external candidate, of just getting the sales pitch from Chris Young saying, hey, this is what we think of ourselves. This is what we hope to be. This is, the ideal version of ourselves. No, Skip Schumaker has already seen it from the inside for a year. He has learned what this organization is like, what they are good at, what they are not good at, what he can improve as manager, just learning from the best. Bruce Bochy is the best manager, I think, in the history of baseball, and spending time in the same organization from him, learning from him, maybe teaching him some things is incredibly helpful. It is an odd position, and this is a guy who would have been the favorite for any managerial opening that was left. And there are a lot of them right now. There are 6 of them that are still left, and maybe by the end of this postseason, we might have more. I doubt it. I don't think anybody else is going to make a big managerial change, barring something very, very odd. But Skip was a hot commodity. The Rangers brought him in after that 2024 season when they lost their manager in waiting Will Venable to the Chicago White Sox. They had Bruce Bochy coming up on the end of his tenure. He wasn't officially brought in to be the Bruce Bochy replacement, but that contingency plan was always something that was in place, if not explicitly discussed, then at least on their minds, because this guy has a plan. He has some thoughts about what he wants to do with this Ranger squad to turn things around. Talk about what those are and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Let's look right now at some of these World Series odds as we are officially in the NLCS and ALCS era. Right now, the Dodgers, before they've played a single game in the NLCS, are favored to win the whole dang thing at plus 115. Mariners, after winning game one, are plus 200. Brewers plus 480. Toronto Blue Jays at plus 550 to win the whole dang thing. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com right now to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Shout out to everybody for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we'll be back and talking about some internal free agents. Who should the Rangers bring back? Who should they not? I think I'm going to start by looking at this rotation. The Rangers have some guys who could be filling spots in this rotation next year that are free agents. And should they bring them back? Should they not? And what would those deals look like? I'll talk about that and more on tomorrow's episode. But let's talk about Skip Schumaker, the skipper. What does he want? What is the plan? What's the plan? That's what everybody's asking Skip Schumaker, because the plan for the Rangers to be good in 2024 and 2025 was that this team would have the best manager in the history of baseball, a guy with 4 rings he could slam down on the table, almost too many to fit on one hand. Actually, that's exactly how many you could fit on one hand without making one of them a thumb ring, although that 2023 Rangers World Series ring was definitely big enough to be a thumb ring. Heck, maybe even fit around your whole forearm. That thing was so dang big. But you got to have a plan. You got to be a man with a plan as a manager. And Bruce Bochy had one in 2023, and it worked out spectacularly. And it did not work out quite as well in 2024 and 2025. Now, how much of that is on Bruce Bochy? It's up for debate. I don't think a large portion of it, but I think it could be time for Skip Schumaker and his plan. Now, what is his plan? He talked a lot about winning culture, which is such an obvious slam dunk thing for someone to say, especially someone who is a part of the St. Louis Cardinals organization. But he also talked about how that's kind of a nebulous term of like, okay, yeah, but what's a winning culture? Winning a bunch of games, doing the little things right. It is just such a catch-all term. And he says he's got some ideas on how to define it. He's got an acronym. His philosophy is CAPE, which stands for communication, alignment, preparation, and execution. And, you know, a lot of guys can talk about a winning culture and all of that nonsense, but Skip Schumaker was a part of one for many years. He was a longtime St. Louis Cardinal. He spent several seasons with them. Most of his big league career, 8 of his 11 years in the big leagues as a player, were spent with the St. Louis Cardinals, including in 2006 when the Cardinals won the World Series and 2011 when the Cardinals won yet another, their most recent World Series. But this is a team that, for better and worse, for how much we all roll our eyes at the Cardinal way, this is a team with an established culture of winning, especially when Skip Schumaker was there. He wasn't just there as a player. He was also there as a coach for several seasons early on in his coaching tenure. He retired from the big leagues back in 2015, and then started coaching a little bit with the Cardinals, a little bit with the Padres, then got his first job as a manager in 2023. But looking at the Cardinals and their success over the last 30 years, it hasn't been as successful for the last couple of years, last 3 years, actually. But over the span of the last 30 years, there have been only 5 losing seasons. 5 losing seasons in 30 years. That's like 7 more years than Wyatt Langford has been on this earth. That's crazy. That is a crazy level of success. And in those 30 seasons, No, two of those 5 losing seasons came in the last 3 years. It's only just recently started to kind of crumble a little bit, the facade of the Cardinals being a model organization. And it's not just success in the regular season. It's not just, barely winning records. This is a team that has gone deep into the postseason year after year after year. They're not just sneaking in there. They've got 13 seasons of 90 plus wins in the last 30 years. That's nearly half the time they are winning 90 or more games. They've had more seasons where they had 95 or more wins than they had losing seasons in the last 30 years. 6 seasons where they've had 95 plus wins, only 5 years where they've had losing seasons in the last 30. That's nearly my entire lifetime. Not quite, but nearly. They also have 3 seasons of 100 plus wins in the regular season. They've got more than one out of every 3 years. They have made it to the NLCS. In the last 3 decades, 11 NLCS appearances, 4 World Series appearances, 2 World Series titles. This is a team that really does know how to win. It is embedded in their culture. They are so annoying about it, but they, for the last 30 years, have been right. They have been winning. Them and the Yankees. Now, the Yankees don't have quite as much postseason success in the last 30 years. Yeah, in the back half, yes. In the last 10, 15, the Yankees don't have as much in terms of deep runs of success like the Cardinals do. But both those teams have been very good at establishing winning cultures and upholding those winning cultures. And that is something that he is going to bring to this team. Skip Schumaker was embedded. He is just such a Cardinal archetype of a player and a person and a coach, which has its good things. He's also seen its flaws in recent years of how they kind of started to crack and crumble a little bit. And he has his own philosophies on things of how to fix that. He wants to have the Rangers have an offensive identity. That is another part of his plan, because it's good to have a plan of being a manager, but it's not going to work if the Rangers don't fix their offense. Now, he is the manager. He is not the hitting coach. He is also not the GM signing players who will come in and fix this offense, but he wants this team to have a cohesive offensive identity. Last year, the Rangers tried to have that. Chris Young tried to bring that in. He talked a lot in the offseason about this team being a fastball hitting team. They were very bad at hitting fastballs in 2024. And so he said, hey, let's bring in some guys who can hit some fastballs. They brought in Jake Berger, established fastball hitter. Jock Peterson, established fastball hitter. Kyle Higashioka, fastball hitter. And they were still very bad at hitting fastballs as a team, partly because those guys did not hit particularly well for long stretches of the season. Higgy finished off the second half pretty well. Jock finished off the second half better. Jake Berger, until that last, massive skid where he just started swinging out of his shoes at everything, he was hitting a little bit better, but overall, those guys did not change the culture. The Rangers are still very bad at hitting fastballs. One of the bottom 5 teams in terms of, average. I'd never heard a team be called or had their approach be like, yeah, we're going to hit one type of pitch. It's like, okay, that's odd. Also, not to, harp on Chris Young, who overall has done a pretty good job as a general manager / Pobo. I mean, going 1 for 3 in terms of World Series titles as a GM is pretty good. It's a pretty good ratio, but missing the postseason and the other 2, not quite as good. And that's something he hasn't been quite as good at as a GM / Pobo is fixing the hitting. It was great in 2023 when everything was working, but it hasn't quite been as good the last couple of years. But I had never heard a team be, a certain type of pitch hitting team. It's like, oh, we're a changeup hitting team. Oh, we're a slider hitting team. Oh, we're a fastball. We're a breaking ball hitting team. It's just kind of odd. And especially in this day and age where fastball usage is at its lowest point that it's been in a long, long time, maybe ever, because everybody else has got pitchers these days have so many good off-speed, secondary breaking type of pitches that they don't have to rely on just establish the fastball, as evidenced by, go back, if you were watching the Game 5 of the ALDS between Seattle and Detroit, where so funny watching the broadcast and old Johnny Boy watching that team be like, no, okay, they're throwing so many sliders to establish the fastball, and then they kept on throwing slider after slider after slider after slider after slider in those 15 innings and ended up winning. it is not exactly wasn't exactly Chris Young's smartest decision to go after that. And a lot of those acquisitions just did not look great in year one. Still time for a bounce back in year two, especially Jake Berger, who hit over 300 that first year he was with Skip Schumaker as manager in 50-ish or so games with the Marlins after the trade deadline. If he hits over 300 for a full season with Skip Schumaker this year and has, 30, 35, 40 home runs, that will fix whatever, problems this Rangers team was having. I've also heard a lot about, them having productive at bats. That's something they weren't good at this year. I think there's a little bit too much of an emphasis on them not being able to hit sac flies or do sac bunts. That's not good offense, although Skip Schumaker did utilize that quite a bit when he was managing in 2023. His team was, towards the top in terms of sac bunts, sac hits, things like that. Just a little bit of small ball because this Rangers offense just hadn't been able to hit the long ball in the last couple of years. Maybe things will turn around a little bit. Maybe Jock Peterson will start hitting more like the Jock Peterson that we saw the last 12 years as opposed to what we saw this year. Maybe Jake Berger will be more of that home run mashing threat. We know Corey Seager is going to do Corey Seager things, but there's also a lot made of the Marlins in 2023 when Skip Schumaker won Manager of the Year, leading the National League in batting average. Well, a lot of that was basically just Luis Arias hitting 353 for the full season, 354 for the full season. And for most of that season was flirting with hitting 400 in a full season. He kind of did a lot of the work in that. Not a whole lot of guys who were hitting above 300. I mean, Jake Berger did in 53 games. John Birdie got kind of close in 133. He hit 294, but everybody else that was, an established everyday player was hitting below 260. It's not like they were all just doing that because it was an offensive philosophy. It was kind of just all they could do with that personnel. And I think this offensive personnel is significantly better than the 2023 Miami Marlins squad, though they didn't hit like it in 2025 or really even in 2024. I think that they have got some more offensive potential, but having that cohesive team first identity that showed them some success in 2023 could be helpful. But this is all the plan. This is all theoretical. This is all what he's thinking beforehand. This is what he wants. What does Skip Schumaker need to be successful as a Texas Rangers manager in 2026 and beyond? Talk about that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings together your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, so if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you so you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can maximize your investments, increase your savings rate, and easily review your finances with your partner or financial advisor. You can keep that clear view of your financial health week to week, long term, and more. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Shout out to everybody thinking Locked On Rangers first listen every single day. On Wednesday's show, I'll be back and talking more at length about internal free agents. Who are the Rangers bringing back? Who should they bring back? Who of these scrappy little end of roster guys are going to get that contract in free agency? All that and more on Wednesday's episode of Locked On Rangers. So we talked about what Skip Schumaker wants, what he did here. He spent some time with the organization up and down, getting a good look at who this franchise is, where they are good at, what they are bad at. His vision is to have that cohesive communication. He wants the Rangers to be the best communicating team in all of Major League Baseball, just communicating the vision of what the offensive philosophy is, of what the pitching philosophy is. I say the pitching philosophy should be whatever you did last year, do that exactly. Do all of that. Keep doing that, except for the part where the bullpen was bad. Don't do that part. But the starting pitching, do all of that again, except maybe we don't have to have a full year of Patrick Corbin, we can just do a little healthier version of all the success the Rangers had last year. But what does he need? He needs to balance what Bruce Bochy did well, which was being hands-off, being that steadying presence, being that calming presence through the ups and downs, the waters, the waves, the typhoons that come with a Major League Baseball season. Bruce Bochy was incredibly great at steadying the ship, of being hands-off, of letting his leaders on the team lead, letting the vets run the show and say, hey, I trust you guys. You guys know what you're doing. Just go lead. That didn't entirely work the last couple of years. So do you go full opposite in the end of the pendulum? Do they go with kind of what the Rangers managers had been, the two managers before that in Bruce Bannister and Jeff Bannister, not Bruce Bannister, in Jeff Bannister and also Chris Woodward? Those guys were a little bit too much hands-on. The Rangers players at the time, at the end of Jeff Bannister's tenure as Rangers manager, gosh, try saying that 5 times fast. They just kind of tuned out the grit, never ever quit mentality that Jeff and Banny was preaching down the line. It did not work those last couple of years. And after winning Manager of the Year in, I believe, 2016, maybe it was 2015. I get those years confused, back-to-back AL West titles that ended at the hands of the Toronto Blue Jays. Those seasons kind of were interchangeable for me, but those were both good years from Jeff Bannister. The Rangers didn't have good years under Chris Woodward. Now, 2019, I think that team was scrappy, and had they not had so many injuries to their starting pitchers, and had they had, more than 2 competent starting pitchers, they had 2 very good starting pitchers in 2019, and had, Joey Gallo not had an oblique injury that ended what was his first All-Star season a little bit prematurely, had they not had, injuries to Hunter Pence, who was looking fantastic in the first half of that season and what was a very, very weird juice ball year. Maybe they could have had some success under Chris Woodward, but he was also a little bit too much hands-on, and the players ended up kind of tuning him out and just saying, hey, yeah, we're not going to listen to all these things you are trying to say. The balance lies somewhere in the middle. And for me, and I think just in general, it's kind of a consensus that the perfect manager, the best manager for any given team, it's contextual. You could take the guy who is considered one of the best managers in the history of baseball in Bruce Bochy. You plug him in 2024 and 2025 with the same team, basically, that won it all in 2023, and it did not work. Now, maybe a different manager will work better. In Jeff Bannister, when he was, rah, fight your butt off, don't give anything else, fight, punch people in the face, do whatever you can to, get that extra edge. That worked incredibly well in 2015 and 2016. And then when it didn't work, it really did not work in 2017 and 18. It was just like, okay, that was not working at all. It can change pretty quickly. Heck, you can look at, you can look at Aaron Boone with the New York Yankees. It is different managing the New York Yankees than it is managing the 29 other teams. Aaron Boone is not that great of an in-game manager. He has some issues with that, but in terms of what is required to be the manager of the New York Yankees, to take the flack, to take the heat, to take all the criticism and scorn of the New York media and protect his players from it, Aaron Boone is incredible at that job. Would he be an incredible manager at, the 29 other franchises? Probably not. Probably would not be as good. Probably would not stay as long as he has stayed the manager of the New York Yankees, because it is a different kind of a gig. And so the best manager of a certain time, I mean, heck, look at Tony La Russa and how well he did with the Cardinals and how disastrously that went when the White Sox said, hey, what if we bring you in here with this terrible team? Can you fix all that? And that did not work. It is contextual. The perfect manager is contextual. And I think that Skip Schumaker fits in the context of what this Rangers team needs right now, what they have been through, what they are going to, what they are hoping to achieve. I think that Skip Schumaker is exactly what they are looking for. So the things that he needs is to fit the context, fit that middle ground between Jeff Bannister and Chris Woodward's too much hands-on, Bruce Bochy's too much hands-off. And from his players, he needs a lot from his players. He needs the success of his players. He needs the big three in that rotation of what they did last year in Jacob deGrom, in Nathan Eovaldi. And yeah, down the stretch, Jack Leiter was that third of the big three. He was fantastic down the stretch, and he needs those guys to all do about what they did last year. Maybe not Eovaldi. I think the Rangers would sacrifice a little bit more durability from Eovaldi and, maybe half a run higher on the ERA. Give me 30 starts of a 2.2 ERA versus 22 starts of a 1.7 ERA. I mean, what he did last year was just absolutely phenomenal, unprecedented, unbelievable. And maybe get a few more innings out of Jacob deGrom, get 30 starts again. That would be fantastic. I think he can do that. I really think that, with establishing that workload, getting back to that level of workload, that we can get that kind of amount of starts and maybe even more innings. Maybe we're seeing more in the 180, 190 feels like it's pushing it, but 180, 185 in terms of the innings from Jacob deGrom next year, and another 30 starts, maybe 32 starts. Maybe he's even the opening day starter. Maybe it's still Evo. I don't know at this point, but you don't have to, front load Jacob deGrom making the fifth start of the season and stretching out those starts. He only had to miss one start, but because he was stretched out at the back end of the rotation so that he would have more games to recover and whatnot throughout the season, he only made 30 starts where he could have made 32 had he not skipped that one start and had he, had one more start in there at some point. But who knows? And Jack Leiter making those huge steps forward in the second half, they need him to be a very good, a good starting pitcher. They would like for him to be a very good starting pitcher next year, but they need Jack Leiter to be healthy and a good overall starting pitcher next year. And really, he needs the hitters to hit. More than anything else, he just needs these hitters to hit like the back of their baseball cards. And, anybody hit better than what's expected of them. Because you look at this offense last year, there's not really one person who played a significant role, who played an everyday role consistently that hit way better or even, a decent chunk better than they were expected. Noel Garcia, less than expected. Evan Carter, he played 63 games. He was a little bit better than I expected him to be in the early parts of the season, but not that much better. Wyatt Langford, that's about what we expected from him. Corey Seager was about what's expected of him. Josh Young, not a great year. Jake Berger, not a great year. Marcus Semien, not a great year. Jonah Heim, really bad year offensively. I mean, they just need one of these hitters to just go ahead and hit. That is going to make all the difference in the world. Now, a little bit of news before we get out of here. Speaking of Nathan Eovaldi and his durability, he had surgery on a sports hernia this offseason, a similar surgery to actually the exact same surgery, maybe on a different leg than Corey Seager was dealing with these last couple of years. It is not a full-on actual hernia. It is just kind of a more of a strain in the groin area. I don't know what it is with the Rangers and herniating their sportses or whatever way you should actually say that. He's going to be just fine. That is not going to be a long-term injury. It's just getting something fixed in this offseason. So hopefully he can come back fully healthy, a full go for spring training after dealing with that rotator cuff strain that took him out for the last month of the season, where the Rangers really could have used him. Also, the changes in the coaching staff have already started, just minor ones at this point, but this one, even though it's minor position, it feels like a big loss. Bobby Wilson is not being retained by the Rangers. The Rangers say he is in good standing, and everybody in this coaching staff who finished the season with the team is in good standing. Bobby Wilson, heck of a job as the catching coach for this team. The Rangers defensive catchers have been doing such a good job under Bobby Wilson's tenure. I don't know if he's going to go be a catching coach somewhere else. I think he is a future potential manager. If they did not get Skip Schumaker, I bet Bobby Wilson would have probably interviewed for the managerial opening. But the defense they have gotten, the pitch framing specifically that they have gotten out of guys like Jose Trevino, out of Jonah Heim these last couple of years, out of Kyle Higashioka. I mean, he has done an incredible job changing all of that up with a new philosophy on the catching. The hitting from these catchers has not been spectacular outside of Jonah Heim for the first half of 2023. But still, what he has done defensively, a big part of this Rangers pitching staff being the best in baseball has to do with these catchers and has to do with what Bobby Wilson did. Happy trails to Bobby Wilson. Hope you settle somewhere great and get whatever you want out of that next position. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.